So that means I have to stick to that, because if I send them something that's not within those specifications, they're not going to print it, they're going to send it back. Or it's going to be printed wrong because they don't care, and then they'll still try to charge you because they'll say you didn't stick to the specifications. So it's all a balancing act that you guys have to think about when it comes to format. Okay. So week 3, we went through our lecture on format. Did you guys have any questions about printing process or format or any of that stuff?
Oh. So whenever you see something that bleeds off the page, it's always been cut down. No printer can print all the way off the edge. Is that correct? Okay.
There's some like desktop printers that have the ability to do it, but it doesn't really work, because what it does is it just like gunks up all of the ink on your rollers, and then the next job you run through is a little smeary. So it's always trimmed down. So everything like a little box package, how color bleeds off the edge, when that's all flat, it usually has that bleed line that's built in. So they build it in so it bleeds off the edge and then it gets trimmed down. Find another example. Same thing with this book. Okay, so this cover was printed separately from the pages most likely. Okay, so this is a cool format. So you think about how the cover holds in. Okay, and so it was bleeding off the edge. So that means there was a little tiny portion that you kind of build into your file, and you make sure that the red only goes up to that. But then your crop marks, when you export, would come right to that edge where you need to actually trim it down. Here's what it looks like on the inside. Same thing. So each one of these blocks here, you would have a little bit of color that would come right off. Hi, Ruth. You want to come in and hang out? Yeah. Yeah, please do.
Hello, sorry for interrupting.
This is Ruth Von Eberstein. She's a graphic designer in town, and she wanted to crash the class.
I did want to crash the class.
Maybe I'll get you to say a few words.
Oh, I have to let you know, it took me a while to find this.
Yes.
Did anyone else have that problem?
Yes, it's tucked away. So we just got finished talking about format, and now I'm teaching a little bit about bleeds. We are a beginning class. Most of the students here, this is their first encounter with graphic design, so we start very, very basic. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our next big studio assignment, and this is your digital painting assignment, and this one's really fun. It's also going to be incredibly challenging. Okay, so you open up the digital painting link, click on the name. Like I said before, the links aren't looking super clickable right now, but if you click on them, you will open up to the all the details for the assignment. Okay. So in a nutshell, for this assignment, you guys are going to be creating a triptych, a graphic poster or illustration that is going to have 3 different components or panels. And the trick for this particular assignment is you guys have to think about format, which we just talked about. Okay, what is the size and the specifications that you want? How do you want to set up your various panels? And also you have to think about color. So we played around with Adobe color palettes the first week of class, right? Creating your own color palette. In this assignment, you are going to be using a single subject to span or be included in all 3 of your different panels, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to use 2 different color palettes, okay, monochromatic color palettes. Monochromatic means 1 hue, okay, multiple shades and values. So you have green here, yellow here, and then your third panel is going to be a mixture of those 2 color palettes. So here's some tomatoes. You have red, green, and then a mixture right here in the center. Okay? So those are your specifications. And this is what it's going to be like real world design wise. You usually have a set of parameters that you have to adhere to. Client will say, these are our logo colors. I want you to create an entire spread or graphic just utilizing these colors, or maybe like a certain subject. Okay? So this is what it's like, and we give you these specific parameters so you guys can learn what it's like to be creative within a parameter. Okay? So let's kind of back up. That was like a little bit of a small overview, and then we're going to get into the details for this assignment. So remember last week we talked about the repetition of all of the different elements that you guys are going to be doing. You're going to do sketches and brainstorming, digital development. You're actually going to like design everything out, and then you're going to have your design narration. You're going to talk about your process, how you got from the very beginning sketches all the way to your final piece, okay? That's going to be the same thing. You're going to put that all into one final InDesign document. So to start, you're going to select a single subject you would like to explore. In this case, this was like kind of underwater scenery or the beach or the ocean, okay? This student chose a potato bug. Do you guys know what potato bugs are? She was inspired by 1930s graphics, okay? And then potato bugs for some reason. Went through the process of brainstorming and collecting ideas. And you guys are going to be doing the same thing, okay? And then you're going to start doing your thumbnail sketches, which are those tiny rough sketches where you're going to flush your different ideas out. You can see she's playing with position and actually really hard to see. She's playing around with the composition, how the subject's going to be placed in all of the different panels. And then she's also thinking about how the size of the panels in the format, okay? More sketches. Obviously, she's a very talented illustrator. You don't have to have that kind of talent in order to make a great design. And we'll talk about that. Playing around with format, the idea of doing it as a triangle instead of a horizontal 3 panels that are rectangles. Okay? Playing around with the position of the subject within the panels. And then finally settling on her favorite. And you can see in the case of the format here, she's choosing to kind of pop elements outside of the frames a little bit. Okay? So be playful and creative. Don't feel like you have to stick into a box. And then here are the 2 different color palettes, okay? So playing around with what that means. And you can see when you mix in black or white into a hue, so think of the hue as like the color, red or green, and when you mix black in with a color, you get a shade. When you mix white in with that hue or that color, you get a tint, okay? So you can utilize white and black in these pieces. Yes.
Did she play around with the color in Illustrator or?
To me, it looks like a combination. Probably most likely she chose to use Photoshop for this entire assignment. She definitely scanned her sketches in, put them into Photoshop, and then was kind of coloring in digitally. You can see that she didn't like the red and the green mixture, so she decided to use 2 different shades of green, and the middle is actually a mixture of the 2, or 2 different hues of green and the mixture of the 2 in the center. You could do something like that if you wanted to. So you're going to choose your subject, and you're going to explore it. You're going to look online. You're going to go outside. You can take pictures. It can be anything you want. Okay? It can be your favorite food. It could be a place. It could be a feeling. It could be a person. Any kind of subject. So think about something that you're passionate about, that makes you excited, that you want to draw, okay, or that you want to take a picture of. And you're going to create a series of line drawings. Little compositions that specifically explore perspective, close-up detail, shape, color, form, directions, and spatial depth. You're going to select several different approaches to the subject. You should have at least 15 thumbnails sketches in your journal. So not always do I call out how many you need, but I want you to play around. So let me give you a little example. What I would do if I were you tackling this assignment is I would start with my subject, okay? Maybe you want to explore a couple different subjects because you're not quite sure, but this is, when you sketch, this is the part where you flush those ideas out, okay? You move past the cliche first level stuff that you think of, and you kind of dig down deep. Maybe you're pulling inspiration from a few different things. So you may want to start with some thumbnail sketches that are pretty basic. You can even explore your thumbnail sketches in a way that's going to test the format. So maybe you want to play around the idea of like 3 long stacked formats. Maybe you want to play around with some circles. So give yourself like some small little sketches that you can kind of rough some ideas out, and then play around with your subject. Okay, give me a subject, somebody. Anything.
Birds.
Birds. Thank you. Okay, so bird. All right, that's kind of boring. Okay, so that's like that. So that's baseline. Okay, and then you think, okay, maybe we want like a little bit more detail. So think about things like feathers of the bird. Okay, think about zooming in on those feathers of the bird. Think about multiple birds. Think about them coming off of the frame. Okay, coming outside of the format. Think about what it would look like if a bird was kind of flying by itself. Think about what it would look like with a flock of birds. Okay. I was in Cayucas this last weekend, and it was like that movie, The Birds. Have you guys seen that movie, the Alfred Hitchcock movie? There were so many freaking birds out. It was really kind of freaky, and also I didn't feel safe. So I want you to explore the subject close up, far away. Okay. Maybe here's like a big mountain peak and a little tiny bird. Okay. So explore the subject in your thumbnails. Because you want to avoid the super cliche subject dead in the center. Okay. In the world of design, this is kind of a taboo subject. Okay. Because if you put something right in the dead center of the format, what happens is the eye goes directly there and it tends to stick. And you lose the ability to have the eye travel and create more exciting visuals for the viewer. Sometimes that's the desired effect. You want the eye to hit right dead center. But when you are exploring these different things, you'll start to see that maybe the zoom in of Lady Liberty over here is far more interesting to get that expression than it would be just to have her on her normal island. Okay? Same thing with these taxi cabs. Zooming in on the back, kind of cropping them off to get the feeling and capturing that emotion, that communication that we talked about last week. What are we trying to encompass with this piece? Okay? In this case, the subject was New York City, so the student really thought about what that means. Okay? You have a lot of big, huge monuments, a lot of excitement. They chose bright colors, a color palette that was exciting. The taxi cabs kind of zoomed in and crunched into the frame, creates like that feeling of the chaos of a New York City street. And then you have this big, bright, bold graphic that really kind of represents the energy of the city. So think about your subject. Jot down notes. If you're going to do birds, what are the things about birds that are really interesting? They migrate, they flock, they have feathers, they have beaks, they have talons. What about those things that are really cool to zoom in on and kind of focus on? What are the emotions you're trying to evoke with your piece? If you want a really dark, spooky kind of bird, maybe you're going to use a crow, or maybe you want to use an owl in the night. Maybe you want to use a tropical kind of fun bird. So you think about a flamingo and you highlight on their legs, and you think about a tropical scene in those different colors. So there are a lot of different ways to tackle this, but start with a basic subject that gets you excited and start sketching. Okay? So 15 thumbnail sketches. All right, and then what you're going to do is you're going to create 3 separate compositions each. They're all going to have a distinct feeling in regard to the subject you selected. So this is what we talked about: tight close-up detail that almost appears abstract, a unique view of the subject, a broader view. Okay, so you're going to, once you did your 15 thumbnails, you're going to do these little, they're slightly tighter compositions to kind of get your ideas a little bit more solidified. With a thumbnail, you can really quickly flush out some ideas and play around with composition and the placement of your subjects. Then once you have ones that you like, you can focus a little bit more on detail. So in a variation of the journal exercises, you will be expected to create a composite composition. This composite presentation will include 3 images. They are all about the same subject and can be identical. Okay, and they're going to use the specific color specifications required, or they can be 3 variations on the same subject. So in this case here with this rocker, it's all the same illustration. Okay, so we're sticking to the color specifications. So we had blue and purple, and then a mixture of the 2. And then the student just chose to use that pig graphic, kind of rotate it in the background for a little bit of variation. This one here as well